Always checking, everybody. Welcome to the Orange Bloods Friday predictions right here on the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That's Jason Sukumel, Alex Dunlap, Anwar Richardson, and this video brought to you by our favorite people, PrizePicks. They give us money, and we lose it right back to them. If you go to PrizePicks today, use the promo code Orange Bloods because you didn't go all in on Longhorn players last week. They will 100% match the deposit. We'll get into some PrizePicks prognostications going into this weekend in a little bit. But first, it's about predicting what happens Saturday in Lawrence, Kansas, Texas versus the Jayhawks. Fellas, I'll go first today with my prediction. I believe we've discussed before we recorded that the line on this is 9. The over and under is right around 63, 64. I'm going to take Texas to win this game. I think it's going to be high scoring. I'm thinking somewhere around the lines of Texas 37, Kansas 31. I think it's going to be high scoring. Look, Kansas is awful on defense. My question in this game is whether or not Kansas is going to do a number on a Texas defense that often doesn't travel on the road. But I've watched so much Kansas football this season. I know how bad they are. Other than that kid Kobe Bryant that Jason mentioned in the modcast on Thursday, there's not really a player on that side of the ball for Kansas that I think's really very good. If we were talking about a combined Texas-Kansas defense, they might get Kobe Bryant on a combined team, and that might be it. I really think Texas is going to bounce back. I think everybody for Texas bounces back. If Quinn Ewers struggles, if Bijan struggles, if Xavier were to have a bad game, this opponent would be one of the few opponents that Texas will play down the stretch this season where if they don't perform, I'll really be concerned about the state of that player inside this offense. There should be holes all over the place. There should be open space to work in. There's a part of me that even wonders if 37 is too low, but I picked basically 40 a week ago. They scored 3. So I'm slowing my roll down a little bit.
You scored 10, Ket. You weren't that far off.
I know.
Count those defensive points. You need all the help.
I was only off by 5+ touchdowns. But everything in my head tells me that Texas on offense is going to have a 500-yard day, spread all of that out amongst the players. It's about what do we get? Do we get the Kansas version of Jalen Daniels, assuming he plays? Do we get that on Saturday and that version of him that's a game breaker? Because if it's anything less than that, I do think Texas will win by the 9 points, even though it's on the road. Just kind of where my head is today, weirdly. Anybody want to jump in and go second on the prediction?
I'll go second. You and I are completely – hey, earlier today, we were like reading each other's minds. Hell, we both wore yellow shirts.
Yes.
Now, literally, I almost took words out of your mouth. We're on completely different pages, dude.
Uh-oh.
I think Texas and Kansas are going to try to run the ball a bunch, which is going to shorten the game a little bit. I think this just it seems like so many times Texas goes up to Lawrence in games where they should blow the doors off them, and they struggle, and it's just ugly, and it's gray skies, and it's cold. I think it's going to be one of those kinds of games. I've got Texas in a low-scoring win, 27-24.
Okay.
Yeah,
Alex?
so I'll go. I'm a lot like Jason. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game. I like the under in it. I think it's sitting at 63.
63.5, yep.
I talked about it on the modcast yesterday. Look, the fact is, this is a game where Bijan Robinson is going to need to be heavily involved. It's not only from the coaching standpoint that they're going to just, dial it up to get him the football a little bit more than usual this week in the cold, in the wind, in a game where, this isn't a particularly, vaunted defense at all. It isn't one that you're scared of. It's not one that this offensive line is going to have any kind of trouble with unless, they completely overload them, at which point, of course you would have to adjust. But I think that not only from the coaching standpoint, but also from Bijan's motivational standpoint, he knows he didn't play well last week. He knows he left yards on the table. He knows he left meat on the bone. You could tell in the post-game interviews that he had that he was tilted. He was tilted beyond belief. I mean, he was tilting his face off. You could see it in his eyes, and I think this is going to be where not only he's motivated, but they're motivated to get their guy the ball and get him back rolling. So I do think there'll be a lot of running here. I'm with Jason. I'm certainly hoping so for the deep dig next week on a short week. I'd like as few plays as possible to have to grade and chart with everything else going on. So that's my prediction. I think Texas wins. No jinxes, no reverse jinxes, no nothing. This is what I think happens. And it's close to Jason swore. I'm going Texas 28, Kansas 21. Hopefully there's not some, fat backup offensive tackle turned tight end that catches a football in double overtime. Here's the other thing. I don't know what it would be like to live in a world where Texas lost 2 years in a row to the Kansas Jayhawks.
Don't even say that in the event that you speak it into existence.
Yeah. So that's my prediction.
Anwar, I'm afraid to come to you.
No, just So listen, I like Jason, I'm in a low scoring game. I'm going with Texas 24, Kansas 23. I think this is a final possession game that maybe Texas ends up pulling out at the end. But I just it's hard. I know what this team does on the road, and I know what you said again about Kansas, but kind of what I said as far as Kansas defense, but kind of what I said on the podcast on Thursday. Well, this is also a team that was supposed to do really well against TCU, and TCU was supposed to have an awful defense. Everybody scored against TCU. Kansas scored, against TCU, and at the end of the day, it didn't happen. So this is an offense that has struggled. We're talking about windy conditions that are going to be there, cold conditions. That doesn't necessarily yield to me, make me think like this team is going to put up 30s and 40s or anything like that. So I expect low scoring. I kind of expect an ugly game that's there. And of course, if you're a Texas fan, you're going to probably feel like the refs are going to be working against you. And so what little success you probably have probably gets negated at some point. So at the end of the day, I'm going to give Texas, as crazy as it is to say, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, even though I know what they've done on the road and it hasn't been good. I'm going to get in the squeaker. I'm going to go Texas 24, Kansas 23.
Just for the record, in their last 5 games against TCU, Oklahoma, Baylor, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech, Kansas has given up 43, 16, 35, 52, and 38.
Who's the 16 against?
The 16 was against Oklahoma State at home.
Yeah. Okay.
It was, I don't know what the hell Oklahoma State is.
I don't know.
That was the week after they got beaten down, 48-0 by Kansas State. So Oklahoma State had a bad run of form against the Kansas schools to the tune of getting beaten by a combined 85-16 in those 2 games in back-to-back weeks. Yeesh. But they did give up 43 last week in Lubbock to Texas Tech. I feel like if we are kind of in disagreements over the flow of the game with the score, we're all going to be, or at least y'all are going to disagree with me with regards to PrizePicks. In my head, I'm going to stay away from Quinn Ewers. That would be my advice for almost everybody, unless there's a low fantasy score to jump on. Because I do think it could be a game where I really don't like
low fantasy score being what?
But I like if it's at
what if it's 18.5?
18.5, I would take the more. Because I think Saturday could be a day where he throws for 3 touchdowns. I love the more with Bijan without even knowing what the more needs to be.
It'll be 124.5.
I totally agree.
That'll be the rushing yards.
The question will be, and that may in itself be a layup, but if you're looking for, looking at what his fantasy score, Bijan's going to have a big day. He could also score a couple of touchdowns. I think they're going to get him involved in a passing game, which they didn't do at all last week. I think going on Bijan this week's a smart way to go. I think they set Xavier Worthy for 60-ish yards on Saturday. I would say take the more.
Squeaky wheel game catch?
Absolutely.
Wheel game? A little bit
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
They've got to go out of their way to make Xavier and Quinn and that connection.
Make it seem like it works again. Put Humpty Dumpty back together. That's going to be a big deal, I think.
So I really, of all the Texas receivers, I think you go heavy on Xavier Worthy. It is the squeaky wheel game, Alex, 1,000%. Against a defense that will let you have some squeaky wheels. Frankly, I look at all of this. The only thing I might wait until Saturday to put in your Texas picks. Check out what the weather really looks like. I'm a little hesitant now before the day of the game because I got burned on this a couple of weeks ago when the weather, the wind was coming off of Lake Michigan and all of these Midwest states had awful weather. We know it's going to be cold. I might have to wait on Ewers and these receivers until Anwar is at the game in Lawrence on Saturday and can tell us, do the players look miserable? You know what I mean? Like, does Quinn look okay? Does the offense look like they're running Anwar in warm weather, or does it really look cold out there? And the last thing any of these dudes want to do is catch a hard rock coming at them at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, like if we don't see one guy out there, with no shirt on, trying to act like it ain't cold. I don't see one guy acting like that. Now I'm like, oh man, they are not feeling this thing at all.
They all have their hands inside their hand warmers and they're just shaking a little bit.
Yeah. Funny.
That's what I'd be doing. That's what I ain't built for the cold, man. No way.
By the way, Catch, usually by tradition in road games is like I like to go on the field and take in the sights and scenes of it. Man, I don't know if that's going to happen this week. This week, I might be up in the press box like, well, sure looks cool down there. I don't know. I'm sitting up here in the warmth, though.
Sometimes you just have to get the hell in and get the hell out.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about Jordan Whittington? I think probably they'll set his receptions at like 5.
Take the under.
His receiving. Well, I mean, and I understand because if we're saying we like, that's correlation. This is daily fantasy sports. We like to talk about correlation.
They didn't throw him the ball until 5 minutes to go in the third quarter last week.
Yes, but it's not the same squeaky wheel. But it is a deal wherever Sarkisian said he did say. The one guy, it was Kirk Bowles or somebody who asked him, who's playing on a championship level for this team, and he did mention Jordan Whittington. He said
he said that was last week. He asked him who played winning football last week, and he mentioned Whittington. It was strictly relating to the TCU game.
Yes.
Who on offense played winning football? It was
okay.
Whittington.
And again, I'm going to reiterate: the only player that he singled out, they waited until 40 minutes had gone by in the game to get him a touch.
Man, but he just like he does a lot. He does a lot for the offense. I mean, I kind of think there'll be a little bit of an effort to get Whittington the football this week. I'm not sure about the yards over because I mean he can get, like we've talked about, he can get it on volume. I don't think it's as strong a play as Catch's squeaky wheel narrative. I'm not, just for me, for Ewers, I'm staying off of it because I do believe if he does get off to an atrocious start, which is certainly in the cards, he could get benched. I mean, I don't think it's likely, but I think that there's a chance he gets benched. And if you're sitting here holding a more of 230 or something like that, he gets benched after 119 yards. You're not going to have that sweat anymore. So I think I would stay away from Ewers just for that reason.
Hey, Catch, before you go get off, PrizePicks starting this week has a 6-pick flex as opposed to the 5-pick flex, which is now 25 times the
25x.
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 So basically, you drop 100, you get all 6 right. Now you get 2,500 in your pocket. Catch, you wanted that thou, you can slam dunk it all everywhere if you do 6 now, Catch, and get all 6 using the promo code Orange Blood.
I was on such a roll until last week. And then I went for the 2,500 last week.
No, that was this week. It's just started this week.
I'm telling you, I went for 2,500 with my betting amounts.
Oh.
Because I believed in Texas in the more so much last week. I need to see the numbers first. But if they are where I think they are, I definitely will take Bijan in a more. Whether it's fantasy points or rushing yards or whatever. I might even go all-purpose yards. They probably set that at 145. I like the more on that if it's in that area. I'm going to go more on Xavier. I need to see where they set width. Maybe it's a catch. Maybe it's yardage. I'm not sure. Sanders has been money, though. They usually set Sanders right around between 45 and 50.
Yeah.
And he usually breaks that. So I would tell people if they set the Sanders line around 50 as an entry, go ahead and bang the more. He is consistently hitting that number. He's never quite getting like 80, 90, 100. He's not having that big of a game, but they always make an effort to get him the football in ways that we've never seen them do with the tight end, not just with Sarkisian, but really feels like it's been a while since Texas has had a tight end where you're like, take it to the bank, 4 or 5 catches, 50-plus yards, no doubt about it.
Bijan's the lock for me, though. Bijan's the lock. And just one thing about these games, if you're playing correlation, what's the name of the Kansas running back, Jason? Neal?
Yeah.
If you think Bijan's going to have a dominant game and slow this game down and take the air out of the football, in those kinds of games where you expect a really big game from somebody like that, it's really bad in DFS. It's really bad correlation between that running back and the opposing running back. So if you really believe that just because of the game flow, the game script, the way things work out, that's one of the negative correlations in DFS. So it's just like if there was something where you could bet on I don't think you can bet. I don't think you can put an entry in on the fantasy points scored by the Texas defense. But see, that's something that correlates really well with the running back, right? Because the defense gets a turnover, puts them in good position, running back in position to score, stuff like that, right? Opposing running backs, bad correlation. So if you're that big on Bijan, maybe something you could add on to your entry is the under on Neal if it's one that also looks elevated.
Can I just give you – I haven't done anything with this particular line, but they've got Keandre Miller against Baylor set at 109.5 rushing yards. He's on fire. He's on fire as much as any running back in the Big 12, not named Bijan before last week. I don't know how I'm going to pair this yet, but I'm definitely hitting that Keandre Miller more against a Baylor team. Did they quit last week? Well, honestly, what was that against Kansas State? We didn't get a chance to really watch that game because it was going on at the same time as the Texas game. But TCU's offense bouncing back after a slow game last week against Texas. I might hit on a few of these TCU numbers. Max Duggan's
Miller catch the last 4 has gone 138, 158, 120, 153. The only time his last 5, he's been under that. Was it 109? You said?
Yeah.
He was at 104. That was 5 weeks ago. So he's been blowing past that number easily. Yeah.
Telling you, that's the one that I've been sitting here flipping around, and I'm like, ooh, Keandre Miller.
Kendra. You keep saying Keandre. It's Kendra.
And oh, by the way,
it's Kendra. It's Kendra. There isn't an O. You just see that O because you're used to saying Coburn's name.
You're right. What did I say, Keandre?
Yeah.
About 5.
Right. That's me just covering too much Texas football and morphing the names somewhat similar to that into something different. Kendra Miller, yes. 109.5. If you type in Keandre, you're not going to find anything. I also like a very sneaky Max Duggan, 15.5 rushing yards against Baylor on Saturday. Assuming he doesn't get hit with sacks, he's a mobile guy. He'll rip off a couple of runs. I don't know. That's one that also kind of stood out to me. Anybody else got anything else? We'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah, I mean, feel like not for college, but I hope you guys listened to me last week about the Trevor Lawrence Christian Kirk correlation stack. Ketchum, do you want to talk about some more college stuff before I give my NFL stack for this week?
I want to hear your Trevor Lawrence, whatever you've got. I want to hear it.
Okay, so this week for me, it's as I'm looking at this stuff, it's going to feel gross, but it just is what it is. I look at my matchup tool that is been time tested. It basically tells me that Russell Wilson's got at home, basically has the best matchup that you could ever dream up at home versus the Raiders this week at 230.5 for the passing yards. He's gone over that for the last 5 weeks as they beginning to kind of heat up. And so I want to correlate it with one of his wide receivers, right? What makes it easy is we have no it looks like we have no Jerry Jeudy. So make sure there's no Jerry Jeudy this week.
Onward knows that.
So if there's no Jerry Jeudy this week, it's going to open up a 21% target share that's basically going to go to nobody except for Cortland Sutton and Greg Dulcich. I mean, even these guys like, KJ Hamler is looking like he's banged up. They got Kendall Hinton that was going to come step in as a tight end / wide receiver who wasn't even practicing as of Thursday. So Cortland Sutton, his more or less is sitting at 60.5 receiving yards. If Russell Wilson's going to get to 230.5, it's a lock that Cortland Sutton is responsible for 60.5 of those. He's facing a top 3 matchup on the roster watch matchup tool for outside wide receivers. He's the only viable outside wide receiver on this team. They're at home, and it feels gross, but Russell Wilson and Cortland Sutton both more at 230.5 and 60.5. Then just add on whatever play that you want from another game, but just lock those two in.
You know what I'm going to do, Alex? I'm doing it right now. I'm locking those two in, and I'm going to pair that with Kendre Miller.
There you go.
And then before they can change it, because I've noticed the PrizePicks guys watch our show. Because they will watch this show and they adjust the numbers. Trust me, Kendre Miller's number will go up after we do this show.
It should. It should.
So I'm putting $50 down to win 250 with the Russell Wilson, Cortland Sutton, Kendre Miller trio.
There you go.
Those 3 entries. I'm locking it in. Boom, just hit it. It's done.
Love it.
Successfully submitted entry.
It feels good to see that thing, man. Like some confetti goes off and stuff, man. It makes you feel like you're a winner the minute it's like you're a winner on PrizePicks the minute you submit that thing. It's awesome.
I feel like that's a guaranteed $250 right there.
Yeah,
all right. For myself, for Jason, for Alex, for Onwar, we've got people to see, places to go, things to do. We love you for watching our Friday prediction show. We do love us some PrizePicks. It has honestly, it's made the football season so much more fun this year to have these conversations, to on Saturdays and Sundays watch the results of the things that we've predicted. Hopefully you guys can use this information and do something with it. Until next week, you guys have a fantastic weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Later.